The snowflake has melted today. The snowflake has indeed melted. Now, the snowflake is not gone. The snowflake is not going to melt away out of existence. In fact, the snowflake is looking pretty attractive at this price. If it gets a little bit lower, you might think that this is an absolute buy. Snowflake is a phenomenal business, but their stock price has tanked yesterday. And why has it tanked? Well, let's go through some of their earnings. We are going to talk about it. Now, why does this matter for people watching this channel? A lot of this channel is videos on Palantir. Snowflake, it's not really a competitor to Palantir. It says it's a competitor to Palantir. I did a video with CodeStrap, big technical guy. He knows this better than everyone else. Snowflake does not do ML and AI with data. They kind of host the data. They're an out-of-the-box software service so that as soon as a client opens up the package, they can get their software up and running. They can get their data up and running on Snowflake, and they can start managing their data. Palantir has to be consulted and oriented with the data. It's a fundamentally different product and service because you're trying to make sense of your data. You're trying to get insights from your data. So that's why Snowflake is growing way stronger than Palantir, because it's literally a software as a service, a traditional SaaS, whereas Palantir is more of the consulting type of let's customize this product, but then they get the margins of a software as a service company, about 80% gross margins, because they're ultimately selling a software. They're not selling consulting services, which is why Palantir is not a consulting firm, but they have to do some consulting to be able to get the product in the door. Snowflake plunges almost 30% on slowing revenue growth. Their forecast calls for slowing growth in product revenue growth, which makes up the total revenue. The cloud software companies expect 79 to 81% product revenue growth in the fiscal first quarter. That's kind of crazy, right? The fact that they're expecting 80% product growth and Palantir is expecting 30% or something like that, or I think 26, something that they've estimated for, and analysts tank the stock. Now, the reason for this is because Snowflake was already very richly valued, right? Snowflake it got to a high of 450 or something, and it was trading at 264 before it tanked. So they predicted about 78% product revenue growth. They expected about close to that, not enough for analysts to feel that was good. And they already have almost 6,000 customers. So that's the other thing to recognize about Snowflake, is that if you already have 6,000 customers, I mean, there's room to grow, but it's goodness, it's kind of like Amazon. It's how much more can they grow? I mean, they can grow a lot, but they're pretty big already. So let's look at some of the numbers. Earnings. This was a big one. Loss of 43 cents. They missed earnings by 43 cents. That hurt them very badly. They dropped 30% in extended trading. I think they got to a low of 185 from 264. Let's actually look at it right now. Snowflake stock. So this is what happened. As you can see, deep slopes. They were at 264 today. That's what they closed at after hours, and then as soon as earnings came out, they're at 266. Boom, 189 around 415. This is when I saw this, when I tweeted about. I was like, OMG, Snowflake stock, what happened? And then it's ending at around 206. So deep 30% decline. I think this dip will be bought. I think a lot of people will buy it. I am not buying it because I don't know, it's a 70 billion market cap. I don't think a 10x to get to 700 billion is that likely, to be honest. I think Palantir's 10x is way more likelier, just because I think they're doing something a lot more innovative. But nonetheless, now they had a revenue of 383 million versus 372 million. Their revenue grew 101% year over year. I think that's the important thing to understand. Revenue growing 100% year over year is absolutely insane. I mean, this company is an absolute monster. For context, Palantir is growing 41% year over year. Snowflake's 100%. The company reported a 132 million net loss, narrowing from almost 199 million the year quarter. That's good. They're losing less money, and they're reaching 110%. Now, when you're growing that much, your guidance is super important, because if you're not going to keep growing at that level, then analysts will likely sell off the stock because they might think that the stock is overvalued, or they might think the stock doesn't have the potential to grow. This is what we saw with Facebook. Facebook said, hey, we have growing daily active users. This was the first quarter where it went from 1.95 billion people using Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook to 1.93 billion. Now, you may think that's nothing, but nonetheless, when a company is valued on its future cash flows, the question is the company going to be able to grow in the future? Because that's the nature of even a high-growth tech stock, especially, and Snowflake is, it's a high-growth tech stock. And you're trying to value it, even though it is so richly valued, you're trying to understand and value it at a deeper level. So the question is, how much more can it grow? And with Facebook, the reason we saw it go from 325 to 200 to less than 200 a couple days ago, and I felt that because I had 10 shares of it. I ultimately sold out at 216 to buy the dip on Palantir, was because analysts thought, look, there's increasing competition from TikTok. There's increasing competition from companies playing with the metaverse. Facebook does not have a metaverse rollout over the next 2-3 years. It's going to take a while. Realistically, it's going to take 5-6 years for headsets and for people to buy them, and for software to be oriented around those headsets. So there's a lot of reasons to be bearish against Facebook, but the reason for the sharp sell-off was they don't think they can grow at the levels at which Facebook used to be able to grow. Same thing kind of happening with Snowflake. Now, nonetheless, I think this dip is going to get bought. I don't think the Snowflake is melted forever, but man, like it definitely tanked. Its adjusted gross margin of 70% came in below the street account consensus of 70.9%. Again, 0.9% is ridiculous, but like, that stuff kind of adds up. I mean, at least in this market, if you're not perfect in earnings just to stay afloat, you're going to get tanked. Although it's up from 62% years ago from their gross margins, which is amazing, in part thanks to their discounts on the third-party cloud infrastructure. Now, Snowflake spends a lot of money on sales and marketing. That's also something important to understand. Palantir spends very little money on sales and marketing. They need to up their spend on that. Snowflake spends way less money on product than they do on sales and marketing, which is why they're also able to grow at these expedited levels. Their headcount grew 60%, so they grew they have about 4,000 customers, which is crazy. And then sort of at the end, we get Snowflake says expect 79% product revenue growth. Analysts predict 78th. 2023 fiscal year management called for 65 to 67% product revenue growth. Wow. So they're already estimating, again, Palantir is estimating 30% year-over-year growth. Snowflake's at like 67%. On Wednesday, they said it was acquiring a data startup, Streamlit, and that's another reason why the stock tends to tank, because to be honest, when you're acquiring a company, that means you're spending more money that you have, or money that, is from future cash flows, whatever it may be, to acquire a new startup. So if they're paying out $800 million, that's not a reason that the stock tanks, but I mean, that is a reason associated with like lower projected growth that investors might think to sell off the stock. Nonetheless, what does this mean for Palantir? It doesn't really mean that much, to be honest. Snowflake is going to grow. It's a phenomenal business. It's not a business I want to buy because most of my money is betting on something that's a little bit more, I think, integral in a lot of different areas. I mean, let's just go to their website, right? Let's talk a little bit more about Snowflake. Also, by the way, my friend Sachin Sharma is coming out with a video soon comparing these two, so definitely make sure to follow him. I did a video about him going all in on Palantir stock, 101%, 100% of his cash, 1% margin. So you guys can check that out if you want to follow his account. So Snowflake's website, right? First of all, their website does not look as cool as Palantir, but nonetheless, where your data cloud experience begins, one platform, many workloads, no data silos. Data engineering, data lake, data warehouse, data science, data applications, data sharing. Palantir, let's go to their website real quick. Foundational software of tomorrow delivered today. We build software that empowers organizations to effectively integrate their data, decisions, and operations. That's the fundamental difference, right? When you look at Snowflake, you're like, all right, in the data cloud, you can access a world of data and services, build and drive your business forward with data, gain modern data governance, connect locally and globally with Snowflake's platform. None of that, and all these paragraphs of text, none of that actually lives up to this statement right here. We build software that empowers organizations to effectively integrate their data, decisions, and operations. They may seem the same, and I'm not throwing shade at Snowflake here, but what Palantir is trying to do is just a fundamentally different idea, which is how can we use the most advanced technology in the world to give you insights around your data. And that is something that is an 85% failure rate when you're talking about AI and machine learning. So they're building an AI ML operations layer on top of what could be a data applications layer, which is something of what a Snowflake does, to be able to just give better insight on what they're doing. And then you look at their offerings, right? This is the type of stuff that you kind of don't see on Snowflake. This is the type of stuff that they're data protection, ecosystems, edge AI, meta constellation products. They're just financial services, Foundry for builders, intelligence, IoT. There's a lot of different stuff here that Foundry is trying to become the modern operating system around. And when you think of an operating system, you're like, all right, I open this up and this thing tells me what to do. It helps me understand. It helps me integrate all my tasks and my decisions. Whereas Snowflake is more so just hosting all this data in a cloud, and it helps you streamline your ability to do things with that data. They're different businesses, but nonetheless, that is what it is. So my overall take is like, for Palantir, this means nothing. Snowflake doing worse is not going to be amazing for Palantir. Now, if Snowflake stops growing at the exponential levels, there is a world in which Palantir can steal some of those customers. And if Palantir could integrate and create something like a Snowflake has on a data applications layer, but not only just the ML AI applications layer, there's a chance that Palantir can penetrate that market. The big thing here is Palantir has to be able to modularize its product in order to be able to serve out-of-the-box software to a lot of different people, just like Snowflake does. The problem with that, and this is where we're seeing why Snowflake is growing so fast, is that Palantir does data insights, ML AI ops. So for them to be able to do that out of the box is a very difficult thing, given they've got to, forward deploy these engineers into your organization and really customize and highly build a product. Now, that's not a bad thing, because once the product gets integrated into your organization, it becomes incredibly sticky and incredibly useful. But nonetheless, it's not as easy as a traditional SaaS offering like a Snowflake. So we are going to see if Snowflake can get back up to that $250 valuation. It's down to $190 or $199, $200. I think the dip will be bought. I mean, I think most people will be buying the dip if they were interested in Snowflake stock, but I don't know how long this dip is going to last, nor do I know how long it's going to take for it to get back up to its valuation. Remember, Snowflake was at all-time highs. Let's look back at Snowflake stock just to take a better look at it. Let's look at the max chart. So it went public in 2020 at 240, and we know Warren Buffett has his shares at around 120, so he made a decent amount of money. I don't know if he's cashed out yet. And its high was at 392. And then since then, it's crashed down to 253, and then tomorrow it'll probably open at $200. We're going to see if this dip gets bought or if this dip does not get bought. But good company. I'm not buying it. Earnings did not go amazing, definitely got tanked, but their revenue and growth was still phenomenal. I mean, 100% year over year is crazy. It's just to top that and to keep that going is a little bit of the hard part. I see a lot of more growth and potential in Palantir, but that's just me. Let me know your thoughts on Snowflake. Let me know if you've invested in Snowflake, and let me know your comments on what you thought about what happened when it dropped and when it tanked. That was a pretty bad slope. Thank you guys for watching. Leave your comments. I will see you guys in the next one.